Hey, everybody, welcome to our Reverb special edition, Future Proofing TNT Music. Um, so, this morning we're going to have a panel discussion with Lamar Pollard, rrell Forbes, Michelle Henry, and Jerome Priscilla on the way forward and the challenges that are being faced in the music industry as it relates to Carnival. So let me bring in our first panelist. This is Michelle Henry. Hey, Michelle.
Hi, good day.
So, yes. So Michelle is a prolific calypsonian and saxophonist. She's been singing and playing for over 18 years, and she's performed alongside many artists and many different bands. She holds an MA in Carnival Studies from UTT, and she was a finalist in the 2020 Dimashq. So everybody welcome Michelle.
Hi, everyone. Before we start, I'd just like to, offer condolences to the family, the Calypso fraternity, friends of singing Sandra Devines. This is a major loss to our industry, to our culture, to our country, and we just like to, take a little moment, to reflect on what she has contributed to the art form and to our society at large.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Yes, Music TT extends our condolences as well. It's really sad. It was really nice having her at one of our events last year for Carnival. And I mean, she always brings us such electric energy anytime she performs, and
yes,
she will definitely be missed. Okay, next I'm going to bring in, let me see if I can edit your name. So we're going to bring in rrell Forbes. Now, rrell is a creative content producer and entertainer from Trinidad and Tobago with an innate passion for Trinidad and Tobago culture. I've known rrell a while, and she's like, to me, a bit of an authority when it comes to all things culture and all things going on. I find so anyway.
That's a nice way of saying she does both. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Music TT, for inviting me here. And of course, absolutely extending condolences, because first and foremost, that is the news that we all had to reach us for the day. But we shall go on, we shall press on, and we shall carry on her name and her work and her legacy. It will remain, Ashe.
Yes. Okay. So next I'm going to bring in Mr. Lamar Pollard. So let me just add you in here. Yeah, so Lamar, another 18-year veteran for the music industry, stage manager, event producer, production manager, I don't know what else, music producer, everything, right? Lecturer.
I could cook too.
There you go, right? So yeah, if I had to read out all Lamar's qualifications, we'd be here a whole day. So, so Lamar, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks a lot to the Music TT family for having myself and my colleagues in culture here. I also want to extend condolences and say prayers up to the family of the late Sandra Devines Millington. A really heartbreaking loss, because as one of the leading women in calypso, at least in the last few decades, I feel as though not enough was done to really recognize and celebrate. But you know how it goes. Hopefully we could figure out how to ensure things like that don't happen again. And celebrate.
I love her name as mother. She really was a mother to the calypso industry.
For sure.
Yeah, so Jerome Priscilla, he was having a bit of car issues, so he will join us as we go along. But let's just get some little formalities out of the way. So the format of this discussion, we're going to just ask a bunch of questions. We're going to discuss, if everybody wants to take 2 minutes and talk about it before we go into open discussion, that'll be fine. But what we're really focusing on is the music industry and the live events industry as it relates to Carnival and all the cultural products of Trinidad and Tobago. right?
Yes, sir.
So first, let's get the big great white whale out of the room. So the issues faced by Carnival and the music industry in specific, even before all this whole COVID situation had, I know there were many issues. As a practitioner myself, I know there were issues. So I'll say, ladies first. Let's touch on some of the issues you think that were there before this whole COVID started. Maybe Michelle or Jarrell, anyone? Yeah.
She said,
Our industry has so many challenges because the reality is that we do not appreciate our culture the way we should. We even then, I think we're starting to appreciate it more now because of COVID, but we never really paid attention a lot to the history. A lot of times, even with the schools and stuff, in terms of what we put out there to primary schools, secondary schools, is not really an avenue for students and young people to really engage in their culture properly. So it started from there. We could even go back to radio stations, the television. Long time when we were younger. At a certain time, you must see a Dennis Plummer look in the mirror or something on the TV. You're seeing some calypso, some national song that you could relate to. You're not really seeing those things now. So I think one of my main irks is that we don't share our history and we don't have enough documented. I mean, I know that's what we are trying to do now. A lot of us, we're trying to document stuff, but that is one of the main things for me. The documentation of our history and the spreading of it to the younger generations.
I think the biggest issue that we have holistically is we are late. We've been late in the evolution of all of it, all the cultural art forms, and as late as I could trace it, at least as far back as I'm 31 years old, born 1990, and since 1990, it's the same format of everything. And so we've been late in evolving from broadcasting to quality. Well, actually, no, quality recording. I personally think we went back, because when you look at some of the older films and the kind of recordings that they have, technology wasn't even what it is now, and yet we still have these kind of challenges. So in some aspects, we either did not evolve or we went backwards. We late in evolving how we teach the culture. We did not evolve in the marketing of any aspect of our culture. And this is from calypso to production to pan to soca, all of it. Everybody just been late, really late. And it was difficult to try to bring it up to speed. Actually, I personally love COVID for what it did. Because it forced literally everything world over to stop. And now you have no other choice but to, okay, now is the time to fix. Instead of waiting on one industry to fix at a time, we now have the opportunity to fix. So these conversations are very important. The work that has been done within the last 8 to 10 months have been important. And you see that the responsibility of it did not fall into the heads that be. It's the individuals. Everybody individually been doing their work, and so we've begun doing that. So outside of being late, I think the other issue is that we are heavily divided, and I don't understand why. Because when it comes to the understanding the history and the culture of Trinidad and Tobago, because the division also includes separating Tobago from Trinidad. Again, why? But the division in each sector. So Calypso don't deal with soca don't deal with the producers not dealing with the pan, and everybody just go in their own little corners and still delay. So COVID has actually give us a blank slate to re-educate ourselves, to prep and step up to do the work that should have been done without having to wait on somebody to allow us to do it. Technology and say, yeah, do it yourself. Everybody had to stay home anyway. So, we could actually get by faster. I think I feel good about it. I feel really good about it. We could get by faster because now everybody can play their part with whatever little bit of information they know, go on a live, hold a show, start teaming up with people. And the more numbers, the more people involved in it, we could, really evolve. But we have to work together to do so and both speak and listen, because I think we're not listening to each other either.
Yeah, if I could just jump in there, I think both Michelle and Jarrell hit some important points. But what I would want to add to it is just the whole concept of issues are matter of perspective, because the issues for recording artists might be different than the issues for a DJ, different than the issues for graphic artists who doing work for musicians, etc. Right? But Michelle's point about not seeing, back in the days we would have seen a Dennis Plummer, or I used to love to see Brother Resistance's
Yes.
Mother Earth
Yes.
and Ring the Bell. I wouldn't feel like myself if I didn't see it,
Mm-hmm.
and I could still remember the impact it had on me. But I chalk that up to globalization and a kind of cultural imperialism that happened insofar as technology made things more accessible to us. The reason why we were seeing those things is because we didn't have access to the other stuff, and people weren't able to monetize those things now. But as it pertains to issues, Jarrell also hit on an important one, and that's the kind of cultural insularity we have where we're not working together. And I would more frame it as a lack of a cohesive industrial framework. You have people who doing things, but they're not cohesive. It's like things operating very independently. And if we're able to interact or work with, so like if I need us, for example, I may have never produced a show. I'm a musician. I realize I have to produce my own shows. I don't know what the services of really know what the services of a stage manager or event producer, and I have to figure it out on my own. You don't really have a framework. You don't know what the next direction is. You have to call somebody, hey, Jarrell, I need a stage manager. Tell me I need a stage manager, who to talk to. And this speaks to something that Michelle also said is a lack of education and a lack of technical knowledge, understanding what is needed in an industry. The two other things I would say is one is a lack of knowledge of and avenues for exploiting intellectual property. I think we're still looking at a very ancient model of music industry monetization, and intellectual property has been the cornerstone of any famous artist or wealthy artist economic portfolio. So Michael Jackson, posthumously, his catalog of music was worth well over $500 million. You understand? So, and we have not begun to exploit that type of avenue properly. And it's evident in the amount of intellectual properties lawyers we have. We could count them on one hand, probably using 3 fingers.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I remember when I first learned that, and I was like, what? In Trinidad and Tobago, where we have so much creative avenues and whatever, we only have how many? Yeah,
there was a period when Karen James, and he's selling clothes now. But there was a period when I went to Karen James and everybody was going to Karen James, and then I think Carla came out alongside or underneath him, kind of thing, and she's now one of the dominant voices in the conversation about intellectual property. The last thing I'll say as it pertains to the issues that we face pre-COVID for both music and event industry is, more music than event, but a lack of exploitation of the Trinidad Carnival. And what I mean by that is that it is the most widely exported of any of the cultural products. We have just the whole carnival as it, as a festival. Whether it's Europe, North America, the Caribbean, or certain parts of Asia, the carnival has, travel now. And we have not figured out how to use the carnival as a vehicle to really export other products. We're really looking at domestic markets and to lesser extent regional markets. Everybody wants their music to play in the States or in the UK or in Asia, and we don't know how to do it. A handful of artists have been successful in penetrating the carnival touring circuit and would tour every year, but there are a whole range of artists who haven't, and we haven't figured out how to really make use of that, the fact that the carnival, the diaspora has spread the carnival for us and really created these centers or these hubs that we could export music from. Now we don't have proper relationships with the producers of this carnival. Yes, the private sector would have relationships because they're carrying products across. So like says Tribe or any of the mass bands, they're carrying products across, even some steel bands. But the music industry on a whole has not really exploited that kind of network, global network that has been created by the carnival.
It actually is the same in the steel pan world, you know. Just like you said just now, it's only like a handful of artists who've been able to, you know, do that transition over. It's the same in the pan world, only a handful. And most times you have it where it's the most reputable bands, and unfortunately is always on one particular part of the country, as the rest of the country don't have just as successful bands. But then on the other end, at least when it comes to the pan world, when we're talking about copywriting, and you know, the pan world don't have that. That has never existed for us. Arrangers have always just been arranging for whatever the figure is for the season, and that is the end of that. Arrangers don't have the luxury of royalties and whatnot. I am pleased to say though that has changed. The conversations on that have already begun, and things are being put in place right now to ensure that by the time we can get back into whatever the new panorama will be, or whatever exporting opportunities that people are working on right now also in the pan world, the conversations of security and royalties and earning in that regard is happening. So
okay, let's just take 1 second. Let me just take 1 second there and bring Rome into the conversation. He's joined us. So
you're on mute.
It's Rome!
It's Rome! Good afternoon, ladies and gents.
Hey.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. I definitely enjoyed the conversation, listening to you guys in terms of how we can get that product out there.
Niceness.
So thanks for having me.
Yes, right. So before I interfere, Michelle, I interrupted you. I just wanted to bring Rome in before you.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry, go ahead.
You know, based on going off of what rrell and Lamar just said, I almost got to call him Lamar. Going off of what they just said, you know, this is something that we even see a lot in Calypso. In 2018, I spent independence in the States, and I went to the tents that they have. You know, they have the Calypso tents in Brooklyn. Yeah. They have 2 tents, and I went to one of the tents, and we're seeing all these people, like, you know, you're seeing Crocro, Aloes, Arts Back. You're seeing all these older Calypsonians, right? And they brought Myron B went across, and this well, she's a younger Calypsonian, Georgia McIntyre, right? And it's something that was said all the time. They always say, you know, we can't carry the young people because their music, they don't have music that would be appreciated outside there, right? And Georgia and they went there and they did stuff, and it was refreshing. People were very much involved because these are people that you already know. And Myron and Georgia did a pretty good job. And I think that one of our problems, yes, a lot of the younger Calypsonians, we may not have, some may not have direction in terms of knowing to do songs that could be exported, that we could use outside. But at the same time, the older Calypsonians at times, you know, I would kind of use Jamaica as an example. A Jamaican artist will bring a younger person who coming up, and they will always bring them on a stage with them. They will always bring that person to say, you know, this is the upcoming act that we have coming here. But in Trinidad, we hardly ever do that.
We hardly
ever do that. And sometimes if we do it, it's more of a control.
Yeah, we do like
that person, you know?
No, well, that's funny that you guys said that, because I remember my first ever Soca Monarch meeting as a young soca artist coming up, and I probably was the youngest person in the room at the time, and all the big stars were there. That was back when the prize was how much of $1 million, so you can imagine who were the people in the room. And I stood up as the no-name artist who nobody knew at the time, And I raised that exact same point. I said they do it in dancehall, they do it in reggae, they do it in hip hop, because Usher would have been the one, and in R&B, Usher was the one to bring out Justin Bieber. You would see Jay-Z bringing up younger ones, and they would give them a showcase in their shows where you could bring out the next new artists, right? And kind of sit back and give these younger people a chance to shine and nurture them and mentor them. And that's one thing that we lack in our industry is the mentorship factor. It's always about how much money you can make as an artist till you die. And there's nothing left for those coming up, or you're not giving them that platform. And y'all wouldn't believe the response that I got there. We had some top artists who stood up and said, one artist stood up and said, why must I help a younger artist to come up to eat my food?
That's
And
his name.
I was like, yeah. And then the other artist, who was a big artist too, he said, all the young people wanted too easy. When I was younger, I had to fight with these older Calypsonians to get my foot in the door, and I had to go and grind. And you younger artists want this thing too easy. You'll have to fight for your space in the industry. And I found that that was, in my mind, a bit selfish, because you charted the way forward. Yes, and you had to fight the other Calypsonians. Why make it difficult for the younger ones coming up? You should make it a lot easier than you had it.
I want to play devil's advocate for a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's saying that hey, well, we don't have a culture, mentorship, or a business model, which is really what it should be, a business model that creates a framework where veteran artists or seasoned artists would find younger ones to bring into the game. Because even when you talk about Justin Bieber and Usher, or even Akon and T-Pain, or Jay-Z and any of these artists, in most instances, this is a business arrangement between these persons. Even in Jamaica, Jamaica one is a little more African culture. I mean, like they have a village, a garrison, and they want to put somebody from the garrison. It's more a rank thing, you know.
Right.
So I bring out somebody under me from the garrison, and in Trinidad, we do have the two things. And when you hear artists saying how he don't want, why bring out artists to eat no food, we have to understand that there aren't enough resources in our local industry for people to see the kind of wealth that they want. So Big Man and these other artists wealthy. And when you talk about Jay-Z are wealthy, and they build more wealth on these artists. And the model that we have, well, the lack of a proper model, one, and two, the size of the domestic market is not such that A-level artist going to make this exorbitant amount of money where his belly full, and he could lie down and say, you know what, I'm a boss, Rome, you up next. I bring out Rome, Voice, you up next, Still Fun, you up next. They don't really have that model. I've seen some people try it, and it more turns into a real obscene exploitation where they exploit the young artists.
Yes.
All the juice and discard, you know.
And that's what I now say is I really have them there as control. But you see, the thing about it is when I talk about these things, I don't mean it in the monetary sense alone, because I look at things holistically. You know, sometimes I mean, when I studied, was studying for my master's, I looked a lot into that generation gap between the older ones and the younger ones. And there's no proper bridge in the gap, you know. There isn't that bridge there. So it's either a lot of people, when we watch at Patrice, Irfan, Second, all of them came from Calypso, right? And it's if you really have a strong backing and you really understand that, you will see that they will still kind of do a little bit of the Calypso, but it have others who is a total breakaway, because when they left from juniors, it's just a big gap, and it's like, what am I supposed to do now? And it kind of transition, because when you go to get into a tent or to one of the competitions, you're too young. You can't fit in that category. So it's like, I am just here floating around for a couple of years, trying to figure out what to do. And there's nowhere for me. And if I go to these organizations and ask, they kind of find a way to put what to do. They're not themselves looking for some way to bridge it.
So what do you think is the solution to that, Michelle?
Well, this is
the solution to it. Now, the thing is, in the sense, I can tell you that there are still Calypsonians who, when you go to perform, they sit down and they watch you. And they will come and they will talk to you. But at the same time, we have the younger ones who you can't talk to them. So you see, there's a lot of issues that we're playing with, Whereas I always had this thing that I believed that Tuko should have had a model where when you leave Junior Calypso, there's a stage set where you could still perform, you could still do other shows coming up, and you're still being groomed. If it is, it will have the young ones who are exceptional that you could say, you know what, we could pull them to do this. Long time in Tuko, you would be a junior and you will still get a 2 nights in a tent. They will carry in a tent and you'll sing for 2 nights. So even though you're not on the cast fully, because you're still young, you still get an opportunity to be a part of that, to experience what is needed at that level.
So let me be devil's advocate as Lamar.
Wait, just now, Rome.
Go ahead, Rrell.
You see, I think we still, it's no secret that Sprang has been one of my mentors. And he have a thing he used to say where we don't go to the root of the matter. And this issue is not an issue just in the carnival or music entertainment, music industries. Coming also from the theater world, it is the same thing. And in having worked alongside Raymond Chukong as well, and Penelope Spencer and all of that, and growing up in it, and yet paying for however long. And then when you start to find out, well, how did they get into it? Because we didn't have technology, they didn't have whatever, right? And they would tell you, they would just go to the spaces and go to the things that they were interested in. So at the point in time, that was the theater, because we didn't have as many radio stations or TV stations or whatever the case is. You had to go to the theater. That was the thing. You just go to wherever the spaces are, and the people who were the heads there, they hire working, they hire doing what we would call it now internship or whatever the case is. And they would involve you, they were hire sweating, they were hire, as gophers and doing a lot of hard work. But at the end of the day, they have you working, right? Now, if you go to, and I have been in that position many a times, which is why the relationship between Sprang and myself was so good. Sprang was one of the few people when it comes to understanding and learning the culture, because when you go searching for it on your own, it's not online, it's not in the books, it's not in none of those places, right? And our relationship got good because he was willing to share. You go to him, you could ask him anything, and he will share. When I've gone to other people, mute, nothing. And that culture exists still now, and I can tell you how recent as now. Everybody know Clubhouse is a thing now. I have been on Clubhouse since the end of November, first week, December, whatever, before it started spreading wild here. And I loved it because it felt like I was in university. I used to join a class every day and sit down with a pen and notebook and take notes. And you have all these executive people who are professionals in whatever fields they are in, openly sharing and answering questions with you. Then when the Trini groups start to form and you ask questions, everybody's still in this closed mouth mentality. We just don't want to share at all. We want to hold everything to ourselves. Everybody wants to whisper this, that, and the other. Even something as simple as service providers for, let me say you have a product and you're trying to do everybody doing entrepreneurship now. And just trying to get, anybody who does supply XYZ is a tough situation. So that's the first thing. I think that's a cultural thing for us as Trinbagonians across the board in society. Even when you have, let me look at corporate world, you have the older ones, you have new people come out of school and now get your degree or whatever, and you're not getting any help in the experience. What you learn in the universities and what is happening in your real life is two different things. So we generally, Trinbagonians generally have an issue sharing. We don't like to talk.
No, well, maybe that's where the solution could come in, Rrell, is that with Mate and with Music TT, as they organize this webinar with us here, right? Is that maybe Mate, we could have more forums like these for the younger artists in different genres, whether it's calypso, whether it's pan, whether it's soca, all the gospel, whatever the genre of music, where we get some of the heads who are willing to share, to come in and give some insight into the industry and how to make it. Because when I started off,
let me tell you why it will not work still, Aaron.
Why you think so?
I learned it too because, and this is in connection to what Bibo was saying and Michelle was saying earlier too. We don't see product, we see people, right? When we think steel pan, is the steel pan man. When we think calypsonians, is calypsonians in the corner, and they're people. And let me show you the difference between product. Just using calypso and soca alone, right? Rome, you're a soca artist. You don't see yourself as a person, you see yourself as a product. And so you package everything that you do, from your music to your hosting to everything. It falls within a brand. You see yourself as a brand. right? And so with a brand, you now have to find your audience. And then from finding your audience, you grow and you export and whatever. And as seeing yourself as a product, we still see ourselves as people. And proof of that is, again, the week Sprang died, everybody was sharing. So I teamed up with Gael and we were getting people to submit, their videos of things, their stories with Sprang or whatever, right? I only had about 6 years working with him. And so the timeline of his life was very, I barely got it, right? During that week, the week of his death, and receiving video submissions from people, I realized that, this guy, now I'm getting the detail of his work and his career and his life. Ajibola ended up calling and we had a conversation. And what's a very interesting thing she said? She said, Dredd, I don't think the issue is that people don't want to share. No, I think the problem is as they were building in the career, for whatever reasons, they lost trust with each other. And so in losing that trust, when you come to ask somebody something in the back of their mind, they're like, they don't know where this is going, or they don't know what's going to happen to this, or they don't know where you're going to take this to go. We receive opportunities in the percussion world and from Netflix, from outside, and people turn it down. Local people turn it down because the mentality is still, them white people going to come and take with thing and go with it. So there's a trust issue now. So you're trying to hold it, but then you hold it, you close your eyes and dead, and where does it go? But as when you're seen as people, when you're seen as a brand, you understand that, okay, if anybody comes to me asking for something, then as a brand, I can protect that. I'll have a contract put in place. I'll have different things. I'll have lawyers involved. I'll have conversations with different people. I'll do my research. But because we continue to see ourselves as people and not necessarily a brand or a product that can now be exported, that can now be sold, that can now be... The steel pan world, we still don't see it as a product. Steel pan have so many divisions to it and so many sellable aspects of it. And people still want to talk about Panorama alone. And still only talking about one aspect of Panorama. Calypsonians, no, you can't find Calypsonians on social media. It's only because of COVID, they now start to think you can't get Calypsonians streaming. You can't get no photo shoots. Rome, you just have to go in studio and take a little picture because you have to package yourself as a brand to export or to attach your images. In the Calypso world, the only pictures is when they're on stage singing, mic in hand. That's it. So we continue to see ourselves as individuals and not start to envision ourselves as, okay, I am a brand. How am I now going to operate this brand? You see, where Coca-Cola will operate their product, you have to see.
Yeah, but Rrell, the thing is, and that's why, again, I would challenge Music TT with this, is that I think what we need to put in place moving forward is a music industry that we don't have, where we have structure in place. We don't have training programs in place. Like one thing that jumps out to me a lot of the time is artists or band or brand management. We don't have guidance. What we have a lot of the time in this industry, we would have what you would call booking agents. Somebody who's a friend or a family member who will just come on board and just take bookings for you. But they're not able to guide you in terms of your brand, in terms of your career, that sort of thing. In all the different fields, whether it's a steel band or any genre of music, we don't have that. And artistic development. I have some people who would be singers, they never been to voice training, they don't know how to hold the mic, they don't know their stage presence, how to do interviews, how to speak. So I think we lack a lot of structure in our industry. And one thing I always admire is the K-pop industry, where that country took that genre of music and specifically targeted America and targeted the outside markets and took K-pop and made it a big thing, where it is now popular all over the world, and people would even speak Korean, but they mix the Korean with the English, and now you singing Open Gangnam Style and you're doing the whole dance, and it's how much ever millions and billions of views. Yeah, so I think what we need to do with our products in Trinidad and Tobago is that now we put structures in place where we could train the artists, train the bands, train the management, and get them so that we can export this product. Because right now, all of our things are still really just popular within our diaspora, but we're still not reaching that global market. Only very few people break out. Let's say Calypso Rose or even Marshall still struggles to break through globally, and people not even recognizing that Marshall is an ant when it comes to the global market. He is huge here, but if I go anywhere else in the world and I mention Marshall Montano, they still don't know who that is. Go ahead, Lamar.
I'm gonna say that is as a fundamental point that you're making there, and it's about comparative wealth and economic value. That's why Marshall not going to help anybody. Well, I'm gonna retract that. That's why Marshall might take a different approach to helping people.
Because he's still trying to make it globally.
Correct. And then we expect exactly trying to make it globally, and I want to just address some things because I think we all saying we have an idea of the same thing, but we're not understanding something that you said sprang totally the root of the problem. So if we look at other successful music industries, the United States music industry being the most successful, right? What is the genesis? What was the beginnings of it? How did it start? Who invested in it? Government had no part in it, none, other than in specific instances, but not an investment rule, right? If you look at the Jamaican industry, which is the most successful in the Caribbean, how did it start? What spurred it, right? And even when you speak about K-pop, one of the things I think we like to do is compare our cosmopolitan or ethnically diverse societies to largely homogeneous societies. When you go Korea, everybody looking mostly the same.
Right.
Everybody not looking the same. So you have a lot of division on cultural and ethnic grounds now. Last year we had an election. A few months before the election, my neighbor and me good. As getting closer to the election, I find we ain't getting so good. You understand? Because I'm not a public supporter of any party, but subtle opinions might come out. A man might say something and you say, well, I don't think so. And then it's, you know how it is, and then when the election's done, I could go back and eat doubles in peace. You know what I'm saying? And the thing about it is, we have to be careful with two things. One is just trying to copy somebody model. That's the first thing. And the second is, what I was going to say it a bit later. I feel like leaning on government to be responsible for industrial development is a bad idea. Music TT plays an important role as a facilitator, which is what I think you say in Rome. Facilitate. But a lot of the industrial development, if we're talking about building business, the crux and the root of it has to be business. Who are the investors? Who will pump money into this thing? Because nothing is growing without any money. We have we have a resource, we have talent. We have all types of talent, right? Even if you look at the Trinidad movement right now, I think they have the most visibility of anything I've seen in the longest while coming out of Trinidad. Men from who live on the block have millions of views. I can't vouch for all of them being legitimate views, but they have visibility, so much so that Jamaicans listening to Trinidad.
Exactly.
Yes.
I know that one for sure.
Yeah. I saw Prince Wani did a interview with Jamaica's top interviewer when it comes to dancehall.
And that's what I'm saying. And we kind of have we kind of trying to build things on misunderstandings or lack of understandings. I just read a comment from Farley Joseph here, where he was agreeing with you, Rome. He said he find we spend too much time analyzing issues. No, you have to analyze the issues, Farley. You can't perform surgery on somebody unless you diagnose what the problem is. I can't go and cut you open to do heart surgery if there's something wrong with your kidneys, And this issue that we have here is an ongoing issue. And it being passed from administration to administration and from generation to generation. Let me just present something there. You feel if Calypso is still the biggest thing in the world and not soca, we're going to be having this discussion. It's going to be a totally different discussion. But Calypso had its time, and it's still kind of held in status to preserve it as a cultural heritage, right? An artifact of cultural heritage. And soca take off, and there's a disagreement between the two of them, which is what I think Jarrell or Michelle, you were talking about. Hey, well, Ufa and Cohen Dubois or whoever else come, Nesta, whoever else come from Calypso and went to soca, and they didn't even turn back. They didn't turn back because that was a time, and we in this time now. And again, Rome said something that I think I was suggesting before, the lack of industrial framework. It's not there. And you can't engineer it with the government. The government might think it could do that, but it don't work like that. We're talking about private investment is being an important factor in building any business. That's why if you look at Carnival, when you look at the tribe model or the pretty mass band model, and they continuously growing. They're growing every year, not so? And they travel and whatnot. But look at the traditional and the other art forms. Are they growing as much? No, they're not. And the traditional models, cultural carnival models, are usually the purview of the special interest groups who affiliated closely with government, whether it's TUCO, Pancho, TTCBA, NCBO before, etc. And there's no business or capitalist or corporate framework to say, no, we're not doing that because they're not making sense and they're not going to make any money, and we're doing this because this making money. And we are seeing the effects of it. So we just need to be careful that we just don't go and say, government help us. It's more situation. We have to help ourselves, and the government there side by side with us kind of thing.
Wait. Let me just reel this back, right? So I mean, the discussion going really good, really exciting. But I want us to try and keep a little more on topic. We really right. So the business development is necessary, right? Everybody's mentioned this before. So investment from the private sector, of course, this is a huge issue that is lacking in the music and the entertainment industry, right? Yes, some of these industries do invest, but not to the level where it makes a significant impact. Can we all agree on that? Yes?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, we have a lot to discuss, and I know we're already halfway through the discussion, right? So I would like to just transition a little bit into what we really want to talk about. How has COVID affected what we are doing, and what do we see is the reality after COVID, right? I mean, whenever that after COVID is, I mean, 2 years, 10 years, whatever it is. Let's talk about that a little bit, right? Anyone?
I'll start it off.
Yeah,
I'll start it off, right? I think we kind of leapfrog one of the comments, one of the questions you had first, Martin, which was, what are the specific challenges we're facing now? Well, I don't know if that's what you're asking, but
yeah, kind of what specifically we're facing now, and what can we look at after?
All right. Well, the first thing I'll say is that let us not exalt the pandemic to a point where we're thinking of it in a temporal fashion, like what happened before and what happened after. It might exist for a while. The idea is what was it? It was something that disrupted how we live, right? Something else in the future could disrupt how we live. What if they have some big power or energy crisis and we can't get internet or things like that? What we need to think about is what the situation is now. Was the real understanding of the disruption, and the disruption is the way we live and being able to connect with each other, right? I wrote an article last year, April. It was the first one where anybody said, hey, COVID and Carnival and what will happen and all these things. I wrote it, I got a lot of good feedback. I tried to sit down I sat with a lot of people, private sector and public sector, and I had something at the back of my mind, hey, Larry, let's try to unite these people, these voices. And the analogy I was using with a colleague is like, COVID is, if you're watching the movie Armageddon or Deep Impact, COVID is like this comet hurtling towards the Earth, and we had to put together a team of astronauts to figure out how we go and save it and mash up the asteroid now. And that's why I saw COVID and Carnival. This thing gonna come and upset all their life, They don't know how you're gonna do it. Again, I said this in April. And in January, I seen people complaining about something that they could have fixed last year. We could have lobbied the government last year. We could have really opened our mouths and expressed our concerns last year. Because again, sorry, we don't know each other. I haven't had the opportunity to speak to you. I don't know if you were with the Promoters Association in the capacity I know at that time, because I should have come to you. But I spoke to a lot of big private sector persons in the Carnival and public sector. And everybody's like, yeah, and everybody watching each other like you're in a classroom, like if you're coming out dance when you was in secondary school and you're free to interact with each other. You understand? And if we're talking about what we're experiencing now, we're talking about the lack of a electronic mainframing of our culture. When the government tried to give stimulus packages to people in the arts, the sector too informal. People not registered. They're not registered with cut. You don't have a register, as Gerald said, you don't have a registered brand. Simple things like that. If that's the point we're starting at, we have a lot of work to do. If for example, if majority of the sector is informal, we have a lot of work to do to get to the point to talk to investor. Because if I have money, why am I coming to invest money in a largely informal sector? If all you don't know what you're doing, and this is something you hear music executives say in the States, when after the advent of Napster and internet and piracy, when they realized they couldn't make the money off our records the way they could anymore, Leo Cohen from Def Jam, he created the 360 deal, which is we could have report and take money from everything. Music, acting, everything. Once we sign it a deal, we taking money from everything. But that is the model they had to create in the music industry for the music record labels and the music industry executives to survive. And the thing about it is, we're talking about creating a model where we could not tell an investor, how do I tell the bank or somebody say, I have $3 million, I want to invest it in the music industry. What do I tell them? How do we spend the money? Do we have a plan? So I don't know if that's
No,
I
it
mean,
is. It is. And the same way you're saying how these labels and things, they started seeking money elsewhere. Till the artists got to the point where they were big enough on their own, and now they individually start seeking to grow the net worth. You understand? Look, we begging Rihanna to give we a little song self, nothing she want to take we on, but she out here making all the money on everything else. So as much as the labels understand, okay, yes, we dress here and we still thinking, look, do you remember when Fayan first did the mohawk thing on her hair? And everybody talk all kind of thing about Fayan. And in my mind, I'm like, but then we go on Shade Room and we watch all the foreign artists brand themselves or gimmick themselves in different things. Same Nicki Minaj do it. All Fayan do was do a little mohawk thing and everybody lose their mind now. Not understanding that that's part of, just like what people are saying, that's the work that artists or brands have to do to export in other avenues, into the film world, into the any of the other worlds on there. And then the individuals now get to grow outside of that and invest in other things. So when one person do well, the industry do well, then the economy of a nation do well, and we go in somewhere, but it just ain't happening.
I mean, I look at COVID, this whole pandemic thing, as a wake-up call for our music industry as a whole, because what it showed a lot of artists is that, as Jarrell said earlier, that they are individuals and not brands, and I hope they're realizing that a lot of the industry. Let me speak on behalf of the soca industry, that a lot of people realizing that this is a hustle for a lot of these artists, and they're not realizing that you're a hustler, because without a carnival, a lot of the artists are like fish out of water. They don't know what to do, because the money they would make would be having a big tune for the season, running on how many fed stages they could as much as possible, make their money, and then look toward the other carnival. But that's not how a music industry works. If you look at hip hop, if you look at R&B, if you look at dancehall, they release music throughout the year. They would sell music on all of these digital platforms. They would sell records. They would be selling merchandise. They would be selling other products. They would be affiliated with brands, and they would be making money outside of just stage performances. While our soca industry, our calypso industry, is heavily based on you making money off of your stage presence. And now in a pandemic where you cannot have fets, then what is the artist going to do? So a lot of the artists now are struggling because of that.
Isn't even a smart hustle though. When I say it's not even, because let me say you have the hustler mentality and you only gigging whatever. You may not be a writer, you may not be as well network. I don't know, whatever the reason is, it's not even a smart hustle, and here's why. And this is to help bridge the division that we have. You see, collaborative work, it could go a long way. Producers really don't like to work with musicians, as in people who actually play instruments, and that has affected the music in a way where the music now don't breathe, right? And actually this week a brethren of mine, we was liming, and he just wanted to go into a vintage Kaiso session, and Disco Daddy from Lord Nelson, he just kept going back. He just going back to he started his song. He's like, Dan, you hearing this, look at this. I was like, yeah, because the music then, and what we like to call a classic, the music then had space to breathe. So you have where the artist would be singing, he would sing in line, but then you have a brass line could be singing along there too now, boy. And we could start the song and one person singing, but we singing the brass line. You're working with other industry, you're partnering with different people. I saw Ki and Jelano. I was real impressed with that.
RVRB.
Sorry, thank you. Because just experiment with it, and this is the best time to do that. Start working with different things. At one point I started seeing Irfan started doing some work with dancers. The dance community has been the most ignored art form in Trinidad and Tobago. Like, we talking about music and what's been going on, and dancers there still in the little rooms, can't get nowhere. The only time dancers just get called for anything is the soca monarch to do 2 things on the stage and run off, change costume, and come back on. By the end of the season, it have nothing for them. You understand what I mean? So you start seeing where like Irfan was the reference. He started incorporating, instead of putting himself in the music video, he put dancers in the video to tell his story. Things like that. We look at all this content. We're not working with the film industry either. So, okay, let's say you're doing the hustle thing. You're a hustler. and you don't have that headspace, then do collaborative work. Experiment with industries that not at all in your realm. Learn what they have to offer back and forth. Calypso is not, I mean, people tend to feel as though Calypso passed, it gone, it dead. But when you sit down and take in Calypso, Calypso is storytelling. Chantwells, that is our history of that. When you look and take in the music of Calypso, that's Broadway. We should be packaging. There's no reason why we should not be packaging. So then the Calypso world should be working heavily with the theater world, but that's not happening. So that's what I'm saying. It's not even a hustle now.
So, I mean, three of you all said a lot, right? A lot of everything I would have said. But I want to touch specifically on, I mean, going back to what Mark is saying about the specific issues that we have now, right? And it's sad, but it's not only now, but it's showing up more now. And I think a lot of people not even paying attention to it. Right now, this carnival period, we see musicians who will have been playing, non-existent. They have nothing to get, you know? The musicians who would have been playing for these performers, where are they? Right? You know, before we had the issue where we saw when you know, Steel Band was the big thing on the road before. And when it had a year that they decide that they kind of strike, and that's when the DJs and all these people really pick up,
The big truck.
Yeah, the big truck come in then, right? And take over from the pan and from the live brass on the road. Mm-hmm. Now, look at what's happening now. We saw it even in productions in recent times when anybody feel they could pick up a laptop and they could pull up GarageBand and they're producing now, so they're doing the thing. So we're not calling sax players, no horn players, nothing again to put on stuff. Now, horn players right now suffering silently in the background because there's nothing for them to do right now, right? And if the one or two people now, I like my horn lines, and as a musician too, I mean, it will be absurd of me to go and do a track and I have synthesized stuff and I just play sax. That's madness. So I would use that, but there are people who are not doing that. And then we also have to remember people's budgets as well.
Yeah.
It's have people who, let me be real, they work throughout the year to save up that little bit of money to go and record for the season. Right? A lot of people don't have these avenues. And I think that musicians are one of the main people that being affected now as well. If we look at, we have to try to figure out what our vision really is for our culture going forward. And it's one of the things that I always, you know, praise UTT on. I'll put a little praise on UTT in terms of studying performing arts there, and they made sure if you are a musician, you have to understand what the person doing stage, lighting, dancing, everything doing. So you could appreciate all the different sectors that make up the entertainment industry. So you don't think that your own is better than somebody else's own, because everybody have to work together. Everybody have to work together. I can't go on a stage to sing with no lights or with no current, no mic, nothing. We're not making sense. Everybody is needed. And
yes, no where people not doing that either. I mean, I love that we broadcasting everything. However, it is irking me as a video producer that we are lighting for screen the same way we would light for live. And I don't understand why we're doing that, especially when you can simply go to actual lighting engineers and hold that question. You understand what I mean? But you have people just touching on the cultural art forms and just using it as a marketing tool, the culture vultures on them, and claiming that they're real into the culture and whatever. But when you sit down and you look at how knowledgeable, I have sat even recently because plenty conversation on the future of Carnival has been happening. And I've heard people blatantly tell me, we don't care about all of that, you know. We don't care about all of that, you know. Why am I still hearing you telling me you don't care? But then having the conversation of how we're moving forward. You know, proverb is you had to know where you come from to know where you're going. And once you understand that, then you know how to add elements to, you know, make the entire package stand even more, really stand out. You know what I'm saying? Really, really, really stand out. But that sharing not happening. And it should be.
What jumped out at me with this whole pandemic, and it was disappointing. And I've seen people saying it in the comments too, and Lamar said it as well. In terms of, we depend heavily on the government to push the culture, and we're not getting that investment in terms of the private sector, because I'm not sure if it was the gym. I mean, I'm not that old and I don't know the history in terms of how reggae really got out there. I think it really got out there with Bob Marley, and he really took it to the world. But I'm not sure if Jamaica's government really invested heavily behind Bob Marley in that push. I mean, Lamar would jump in here if he has information on that. And did the US government really jump in to make hip hop where it was? I don't think so either. I think it was private people, producers or business people who came in and said, yeah, what? I believe in this product. I'm going to spend money and create a label and I'm going to push this thing. And they were successful. And then hip hop took over the world. I mean, the K-pop scenario is a different story where their government took that and made it a model, and they pushed it because they believed that was their strategy to diversify their economy, and it worked for them. So it comes back to the question, who is going to be responsible for pushing our culture globally? Are we going to wait on the government to do it? Is the private sector going to do it? Does the private sector see the value in it? And where do we go from here in terms of finding a solution, in terms of taking our music globally after this pandemic? Because clearly, in my opinion, I don't see the government doing it, because I think that Trinidad and Tobago is a spoiled society when it comes to oil and gas. I came from the oil and gas sector, and I would tell you all that our governments, come governments go, they depend heavily on our oil and gas sector in terms of the GDP of our economy. And they don't see, and I mean, I'm not bashing anyone in particular, but I still don't see that they see our culture as being one where it could help to diversify our economy.
But we have a society that don't respect the arts still. So
right. So and it all boils down to money, Jarrell. I think that what needs to be shown is that we could show that not only Carnival, but the culture as a product is a viable financial product that could generate a lot more income to the society. I think now every focus is on Carnival. And if you all think about it, Carnival is almost at its max in terms of generating foreign revenue, because you can't get a plane ticket to come to Trinidad and Tobago Carnival Week. You can't get a hotel to book. So how much money are we going to make from Carnival if we don't start to think outside of Carnival, outside of Carnival Week? You can't really make much more again. The average person that comes here.
I can say the pan world has already started moving forward with regards to the future of that specific industry, and as it relates to exactly what you're saying, exporting, expanding, developing an industry, and not thinking local, thinking internationally. You have soon to launch the pan notation app as we talk in future, because I don't want it to seem as though it's just still so dark and gloomy. People have been working. People have been working. So I can say in the pan world, you have soon to launch a pan notation app that will not only help performing musicians / panists, remove the slash and put and, musicians and panists, but as well as arrangers and people who just probably never play the instrument, so to speak. You could just do your scores, upload it to the app, and you can actually purchase it. And this is not just local, this is around the world. You can make purchases like that. The app would also have where dissertations and bios and all the history of all the people within the pan community would be uploaded there. You do have, I do know that in the works right now, you have not one, but two independent. Wait, no, one is independent and one is in collaboration with Pan Trimbago, where you have 24 hours as access to steel pan music. We don't have that. And we will always come back and talk about how the rest of the world benefiting and earning off a pan and the factory, and you all kind of say, yeah, that old news, right? We don't move past all of those things already. Like I mentioned earlier, the conversation about earning royalties through our pan music is also happening. And you have a lot of videographers and film producers who honestly did not have interest in the cultural stuff before, but because now they're hungry for the information, they are using their ignorance in a way where it can benefit not just us, but generations to come. So I do know of independent producers who have been having the conversations and are no longer going to like Tuco or NCC or whatever. They're just forming the team rallying the little team of 4 or 5. Everybody understand, listen, it had no money in this. We're just trying to get the work together and put it out and forming a little docu-series and documentaries and whatever. And then you have where Film TT is already exploring how we can have people earn and benefit from it. So people are doing it. You see that independent work going a long way, because Trinis, the wonderful thing about us is that we are not always good at one thing. And that's why I said you don't burn no bridge with Trinidadians. You understand? You could imagine I come across Rome when he was still in oil and gas and fall out with Rome and lock off Rome. Look at Rome now. You understand? So that's what I'm saying. Like we are so talented, and nice. Raymond, he would talk about that all the time. When you have Trinis go outside and they're doing work artwork outside, whatever the industry is. What would take foreigners maybe 2 days, 3 days of a rehearsal, we get it in half a day. That's the kind of talent we have till we have so much to do other things. So the independent work is important. The teaming up now is important to do that work and just do it. Because there are platforms that are in the process right now, again, independently created, where you can earn off of it. I'm seeing in the next 2 years, we're not going to be having the conversation again of how to earn, because everybody been doing the work. It'll just be a matter of, hey, you doing that? Okay, I have this. I've been working on this for the past 2 years, and I think it could work well on your platform. You could help me. I can help you. We grow, we expand. Boom, industry is developing.
Okay, that's a good, nice segue there. I'm going to go. So we're talking about the future here. So we kind of identified a lot of the issues, obviously not all the issues, but moving forward and really looking at 10 years down the line where, as you said, there might be other industry shocks that might have happened. There might be other kind of things that happen besides COVID, another pandemic, another, as you say, an energy shock or whatever. What can we do to kind of future-proof Trinidad music and Trinidad entertainment and Trinidad events? What are the kind of solutions that you think could come out of this COVID situation that can be applied generally, not just a pandemic-specific solution, but a solution to say that in the future we could say artists have an opportunity to make money outside of the traditional, go on a stage and sing a song?
Well, if I could just jump in there, I'll preface my comments by saying that it's very difficult to think about situations where you could, cater for what you call imponderable, something that you can't foresee happening, right? And it's not unnatural or uncommon for industries, whether it's food, education, tourism, healthcare, technology, to be affected by major external shocks. Something could happen that could affect it, right? So we have to accept that first of all. What we could do is put things in place, one, for us to have a strong, sustainable industry, and two, teach artists, create a culture of what you call financial literacy, and teach artists how to diversify their own product bases so that when the music scene is working good, they could shift across to something, or entertainment, something wrong with entertainment, they could shift across. So that's the first thing. And the three solutions I'll say what I think is our problem, and then I'll say our solution after it. So we could agree that if you want to have an industry and have a business, what is circulating that is money. So you need money, right? That's the first thing. We don't have money in a major way to invest. Rome might have a real good idea for an event that he could take to Hollywood and need 20 million TT dollars to do this, or how much ever US. Rome can't go by the bank and say, well, I have this event idea. Rome could go to private sector. He might have connects with people. So we could agree that we need money. So the solution to that, how do you get somebody with money? How do you get investors to decide to invest? One, you have to be able to pitch to them. So when you watch things like Shark Tank and whatnot, what they're doing is what we need to be able to do. I need to be able to come and say, if I'm Rome, hey, I have this excellent idea, blah, 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 blah. This is how we're going to, this is how much on the front end you're going to spend. This is how much you're going to get on the back end. This is who's going to benefit from it. This is the longevity of it. Right? And to do that, one of the core things we need to do is look at the formalization of the sector, because nobody going to want to talk to you or lend you any money if you're not formal. When I go in by the bank or the credit union for a loan, I carry my pay slips, I carry all kind of things. And we don't have those kind of records. The average artists don't have audited records, etc. So the first thing is formalization in the sector. The second two problems I'm going to say are going to be very unpopular. right? The first is that we have to accept, ladies and gentlemen, that not every artist is going to make it. What we might be seeing is actually the natural circumstances of what the industry should be. You know why? I could say that they have 1,000 rappers that people never hear about, and we know the top 10. We know the top 10 or how much ever dancehall artists, etc. They have a bunch of artists we will never hear about, and they're in the struggle. So somebody in New York right now saying, why rrell bad? Why they fighting me down? Why I ain't get through? But meanwhile, they have other rappers who bust. So we have to accept the reality that one, and this is not really a solution, but it's more a rethinking of how we look at the industry. Not everybody gonna make it. We can't save everybody, you know. And what we could do is put a foundation in place for those who work hard, who have talent and have the right mix of factors, could succeed. That's what we had to do. We can't save everything and everybody. It don't work like that, right? And the last problem and solution is we have to move away from. It's something that we do colloquially, and we have to stop doing it because nobody else will call it that anywhere else in the world. We say culture, the government had a thing in the culture. What we have to look at is the creative industries. Culture is more manifestation of people's behavior based on circumstances, right? Based on stimulus. We were slaves, or they enslave us, we sing calypso. We went and we come up with mass. We had the Captain Baker and them wanted to worry. We say now we ain't going through that, and Kambula emerge and we had Juve, right? That is culture. That's the situation now. The creative industry side of it, the industrial side of it is our Juve band, are hiring security, are hiring people to come and do paint or whatever it is. That's the industrial side of it. What we have to talk about is creative industries. Culture is some separate. Culture is Tuco's job, or any other cultural organization's job, is to preserve it and make sure that it exists in perpetuity, or for as long as they can. So 100 years from now, we could look back and say, all right, these are the records, this is the information, this is the archive information, this is the history. You understand? But the creative industry side of it is a whole next thing. So Tuco and organizations like Tuco or Pan Shunbego, etc., should evolve to improve the capacity to document and preserve cultural heritage and educate people, ensure that it's in schools, ensure that it passes down to other generations. On the industry side, which is where I think Music TT comes in, because your line ministry is Ministry of Trade, right? Right. The Ministry of Trade now and the creative industries are the people who are going to come with the dollars and cents, who are a bit more dispassionate about something. Nobody going to get vexed because they don't have a chutney artist in the show or they don't have a soca artist in the show. Because when you talk about culture, you know what's happening? People say, my culture is not represented. I have in a show. We say, all right, we get some money from the government. Let me do a show. The show is a calypso program. The people who give any money, whether it's government or private sector, say, well, you had to have diversity. You know why they're saying that? Because that's what culture, that's the cultural understanding we have. Everybody had to be involved. Stick fighters coasting because they don't have a seat at the table on the NCC board, or they're not properly represented. They don't get a subvention from the government. They just get money that trickles down through the NCC for whatever events they're doing, right? Whatever grants they're getting. And separate the culture from the industry, because when you mix the two, people get emotional. You understand? And it's something I've told people and they don't like it because they never thought about it. Because we think what we sell in is culture, we're not selling culture. Culture is, again, a historical thing, is an experiential thing, is a lived thing. We're selling creative products in the creative industries, and that is what we have to kind of monetize and approach, because our businessman only thinking in dollars and cents and making sure that he's not in the red and that he could have money in the future. So that's my contribution in that regard.
All right, I will take it twofold. Two things. One, let me speak about in terms of the government side of things and jumping on what Lamar was saying as well. I think what the government needs to start to do is to stop looking at the creative industry as them giving a handout to the industry to support by just giving money for these competitions or giving money to support the pan men or giving money. You see what you're looking at? You're just looking at give, right? Without looking at something in return. So what I think needs to happen is that they need to look at the industry as an industry. And if you are investing versus giving, you would get returns. So what these industries need to start to work as is as a proper business model that could generate a revenue and could stand on their own. So if you look at NCC, if you look at Music TT, if you look at all of these government industries, it shouldn't be where you're just looking to give money as a prize, but you're looking to develop the industry where it could generate an income, like how you have the manufacturing sector, or you have or the oil and gas sector, where you would pump money in it and you would get money in return. So they need to look at these creative industries, the industry itself, as one that could generate a foreign revenue, and try to build a proper business model like that, right? That's one. Two is now the artists and the entertainers and all of us in the industry itself need to do the exact same thing. Stop looking at it as a hustle and look at it as a business. So now, as Joel was saying, let us start to develop brands and let us start to look outside of just the carnival, even the soca artists as well, the calypsonians, where I would target the soca artists, because a lot of the music, the soca music, was based on the festival itself. And that is a big problem in the industry, why we can't, as they would say, bust globally, is because if you have never experienced carnival in your life, it is difficult for you to get attached to soca music. I played soca music everywhere I've traveled, and when people hear it, they're like, what am I supposed to do with this? What are they talking about here? What is this carnival thing? And they never experience it, and it's difficult for you to explain it if you have never experienced it. So now with this pandemic, where we have not had a carnival and we can't have a physical parade, now it should be the wake-up call for the artists to say, here what, I'm not going to be singing about this parade anymore. Let's start to diversify the music to sing about other topics. Have you ever heard a sad soca? But you have heard a sad dance, or you have heard a sad hip-hop. So you need to start singing about things that happen in your daily lives other than just carnival. But what happens is that the artists are so programmed into the hustle mentality, where you sing a big hit for carnival, it plays on the road, and you make money off of this carnival, and you travel to other carnivals. They don't think about the rest of the year and think about people looking for music for different emotions. So they started to think of it as a business model where you can make money outside of the carnival. And that's what I'm hoping happens from this pandemic. And not only you're looking to make money from the stage performances, but digital platforms, associating yourself with corporate brands where you can generate income and diversify your portfolio, as Lamar was saying as well, where you're not only going to be making money off of that alone, but now you can tie yourself representing a brand. You can be a brand ambassador, like you've seen some of the artists doing now. You can sell a product. I see Nyla Blackman, I think it's nail product she's selling. Rihanna, as Jarrell said, when last we hear Rihanna's song? Rihanna you're begging for Rihanna song, because Rihanna not even on music right now. She's making so much money representing brands and having her own brands that music is the last thing on her mind. And that's what artists need to start looking at. Who has a clothing line out there as an artist? Who has a sneaker line? Where are all these things? We don't think like that. We only think run on a stage, sing a big tune, get your forward, collect your money, and bounce.
Run off, yeah.
Think of your brand holistically and not just as the song you sing. Because the problem with soca music as well is that there's a reset button. When you see September hits, nobody want to hear your song from last year. So you had the biggest tune last year, and you come this year now, and you can't even get a booking because you base everything around that one song, and it was about this carnival season, and now we're in trouble. So I'm hoping that we see that moving forward, that they look at the holistic brand versus just the music itself.
Michelle, go.
Okay, so I wanna talk on a different side of it. I mean, before I was speaking to Marty about it before, this pandemic is almost reaching a year, right? That we have been in this situation, and we know that there's another strain that come out and stuff. And I was telling him, we are seeing where a lot of entertainers, a lot of musicians, all the different entities that make up our industry were putting out stuff, right? And we were getting some really nice content, which was, I think, for everybody, it was refreshing, right? But we have to be so careful, and we have to look what is the vision and where we see ourselves next 10 years, but I want to look at just this year for a minute. Because if this pandemic continues, a lot of people, they're dealing with mental health issues and all these different things we have to look at as well in our industry. There are a lot of people who struggled with it already for the whole period that went by. And if there's this new strain and it's going to continue, what could we put in place to deal with those sort of issues, aside from dealing with all the other niceties of building the culture and the art form, because if we have all these issues with our performers, where are we going to be? We getting a lot of music right now, but again, as Rome just said, most of the music I hear, is a kind of nostalgic kind of feel that is being created because we do have the carnival, so everything is surrounded around that, and that in a sense is sad music, Rome. That in a sense is sad music, and it also plays of where we as artists are, because they technically telling us how they feel, at the same time they're making us feel happier, but they are telling us about how they feel, and I don't think anybody really look at that and pick up on it too much now. I don't know what you all think about this.
My song that I sang this year all now is, and Jarrell did the backgrounds on it. It's kind of like a sad song. It's like a carnival tabanka song. So I seeing it slowly happening where the soca artists are trying to step out because they don't have the carnival to sing about. So now you're seeing the different topics coming, which I like, that it breaking people out of that mold of carnival. Now you have to look for something else. Ding Dong song with a horn in first. It has nothing to do with the carnival, and it could relate to people's everyday life, and that's where I think the music has to start to go. Sing about things that people could relate to other than just the carnival itself.
I think we as creatives have to no longer be afraid of learning business and the language of business and not be intimidated by it. Just 2 years ago, I had to produce something for one of the soca bands, and it took literally months of running down the manager of the band to sign a contract. You see, when you drop the word contract on people just get bummy, right? Just during the COVID last year, another artist that I was working with was doing different things as well, and having the conversation with the producer, the word contract come up and men get frightened again. Investing is one thing. Understanding how to protect that investment is another. So even if you put out something now or within, like I said, the last 12 months and the 12 months to come, the next, that's 2 years, and you invest and you invest and you invest, you're not going to leave them seeds alone. You have to ensure that as much as you're doing the investment, you're protecting yourself around it. But creatives know notes, we know glue, we know glitter. And when you bring the piece of paper with the strange lingo, we literally shut down. In some instances, the Calypsonians still afraid emails, still afraid the internet. When I was still on radio, why I was getting CDs, I don't understand. You understand? And so I started uploading stuff to YouTube and trying to explain, listen, start uploading to YouTube. The radio station not playing my thing. You have other avenues, but be sure to protect your stuff. As much as I understand that artists now are trying to, as Michelle said, maintain some sort of mental health, because all they know is to perform and to create, and now a part of you is missing. And so you're doing things with people right now, and all these shows happening, but who owning that? Who owning that footage? Who owning that right? As much as people teaming up and offering you something and telling you, listen, I know you ain't making nothing now, so we need to probably if you team up and we could do the GoFundMe thing and whatever, you could get a little something to it. And let me be real, it's crumbs of crumbs, right? So but at the end of the day, after you go on stage and you organize your thing and you do your song, who owning that? Who is the person who owning those things? Why are we still afraid of? Yes, I understand that it will be new. It will be difficult to understand exactly what is being said. Get it, the 5 lawyers that we have here, get them real work to do. For the most part, it might inspire some others now to be like, listen, I want to study this now. And there's another a musician right now, I wouldn't call her name, who, as much as we know as a musician, what I recently found out is that she's studying law and entertainment law too, and looking to transition into it. Because 1, it is lacking. 2, in order to mind her own business, especially when it comes to exporting, you needed to understand. You understand? I think we just have to change that mindset.
So, Gerald, what I will stick up in here just to plug this, right, is that I recommended this book to a couple artists and those who listening, if you have artists in here, anybody in the industry, there's a book called All You Need to Know About the Music Business, right? So I'll repeat it again. All you need to know about the music business, the author is Donald S. Passman. And I think that book helped me a lot in terms of developing my brand and learning the business side of music versus just the music side. So I would recommend it to anyone. I mean, it was based on the US music industry, but it is the same thing applies worldwide. And I think that's what you're speaking of, is that a lot of the entertainers need to be more educated when it comes to the business
I
side.
didn't say that, but just to get just to get your headspace in it. Because it is intimidating. It could be a lot. It could be, whatever, and you just kind of shut down and dismiss it or say, well, let somebody else do it. No, really take the time and be patient with yourself to understand it, because when we pass the stage of lockdown, and we will, and like Martin is suggesting, what if something else comes? It don't matter. You have protected seeds that you can now repurpose in the future.
I see somebody in the comments say, the industry Bible, they know it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I want to just jump in here because one thing that we kind of mentioned very briefly, but we didn't really expand on, and Janine had mentioned it in the chat here. I think the idea of IP exploitation has to become part of the conversation, because the amount of opportunities that artists have that they don't take advantage of in synchronization and stuff for films, video games, that the niche industries in Trinidad are taking advantage of, but the soca artists and the calypsonians are not taking advantage of,
Well, I could jump in on that in terms of sync, because I was only exposed to it when I did that TV show with VH1 2 years ago. And then I realized, wait now, but this is a whole new market where you could get your music onto a reality TV show, into a movie, and you could actually make a good bit of money with it. And what happens in our industry is that the artists so want to make it is that they give away their music for free. So artists now have this thing where they put their music on a music blast in an email, and they blast it out for free to everyone that they could get their hands on. If you get a hand on their email address, they just blast it out to thousands of people for free. So when you do that and then you post your music on YouTube and people just download it, is that people are not going to pay for the music. And then now we don't have the connections or the proper managers here to contact these agencies to submit your music to get it synced across there. So like when VH1 came here and we did the show, I was introduced to music supervisors, and these music supervisors, their job is to scour the internet for music to fit a certain scene. And because the VH1 came and they did the show here in Trinidad and Tobago and in Barbados, they were looking for soca music to put on the show. And they didn't know who the artists were. They didn't know the artist management. So they had to go and be looking like this. But if we had a proper system in place where the artist management were in contact with these people, and we have training people there. We have training people who work in these industries, and you don't even know that. Like in BT, in MTV, in that whole network, there are trainees working there. So it's just a matter of putting them in contact with the right people so that the artists could submit the music to the music supervisors and you could get your music there. I know Ola Tunji, he has one of his songs in a Netflix series as well. So there are other avenues, Marty, where we could definitely be exploring.
Spice did it with Love and Hip Hop.
Right.
It's not like they want to. I mean, and you even see that the Jamaicans too, because Shensia did the collaboration with Destra. They understand that, listen, let's jump over. We have to actually go into not just do the music, but you have to go into whatever that culture is. Use deliberately with culture, go into that culture. I mean, Love and Hip Hop has its audience, it has a stereotype around it, but Spice understood what she was doing, that it was a business move for her. You know,
I saw locally hip hop Mark Hardy, Brave Boy. He got one of his tracks on a video game.
Yep.
So there are other avenues that people are not even thinking about. We're just thinking about running on the stage and making the stage performance money. But there are other digital avenues that we have not tapped into as yet.
All right, and that brings us to this last point I want to bring up. I just want to get your feedback briefly on NCC and their launch of their TNTCarnivalWheel.com. How y'all feel about that?
My internet connection could drop now if it wants to. Oh
What do you mean how you feel about it, Martin?
I mean, I just want to get your responses because I'm going to just say it. In my opinion, it is a little too late. But I want to see
how we just talking about things that should be done. They make us step towards something. You know, the NCC is an administrative organization. They don't have the capacity to innovate. There's something I think I said on social media somewhere else.
Well, we're not asking them to innovate. We're not asking them to innovate at all. I mean, their job is to preserve culture, correct? And to promote the National Carnival Commission, correct?
Yeah.
So in some fact or form, if they wanted to do a digital version of Carnival, something like this may have been launched a little earlier.
Well, if you saw the budget last year or you check the PSIP, you'll know that the only money they got was for operational expenses to make sure that staff could get paid and come to work and whatnot. They didn't get the usual subvention, and no subventions were given to the special interest groups. I suspect the special interest groups have relationships with some sponsors, so they reach out, and anything that we see, Pancho Big or Tuco, whoever doing, the money came from us, a corporate citizen. You know, NCC's budget was limited. And again, what I was going to say about innovation and preservation of culture is like this. There's people in that organization with a certain set of skills, with a certain mandate. It doesn't mean that they could pluck every idea out of the air or out of their mind to say, oh, we should have a platform. You have to understand that even when the private individuals decided to do streaming, Kenny was the only one who was doing it a little while now. He was the one, he had to jump on everybody.
Yeah, he started it.
Yeah, he was doing it a while. So he hit the ground running. A lot of people figure it out while it was going on because they had no choice. What you want to do? If, you know, as they say, expand or die, or survive or die, you know, that kind of way. And the NCC does not have a mandate like that. The mandate is preservation and whatnot, but we can't automatically assume that that correlates to them knowing they should have a platform and whatnot. I am happy that they are still making an effort to do something. From working with NCC for the last so much years, I could tell you I understand the challenges they go through. Just like with any state enterprise or civil service organization, government structure have its own challenges internally, and that's why it's difficult to come up with fresh ideas and you could come with the best ideas.
That is why, and I started with this, it is always seen as you are giving something to preserve the culture versus a business model. And this is why I was upset with NCC in the initial phase when they said that they didn't have money and there was no carnival, because now they are doing it, and I appreciate that they are trying to put on something, right? Whether it's too late in terms of what Marty is saying, I am very happy to see NCC is putting on something to try and preserve the culture. But what I'm saying again, you're thinking of this as they are just putting money to put on a show. And I thought NCC should have had this discussion with the Promoters Association and with Corporate Trinidad and Tobago months ago. And let us come together to see how we could put on a carnival. And that is why I was upset with them. It wasn't that they said, I understand the government had to spend money to just keep the nation alive, right? So I wasn't expecting for them to generate a lot of, to pump a lot of money into the sector. But what I'm saying is, if NCC had reached out to Corporate Trinidad and Tobago and say, hey, we have this idea, we are going to put on a showcase for Carnival, we need your support. You don't think Corporate Trinidad and Tobago would have jumped on board and they're going to put on a big Carnival show Monday or Tuesday or Carnival Sunday night or something? I'm telling you, I am 100% sure Corporate Trinidad and Tobago would have supported that, and you would not have needed government subvention in terms of money. We would have get corporate to jump on board to sponsor those things, because I put on a whole Parang show, Lamar, by myself, as in Rome, Parang show, right? A Parang with Rome. And I get corporate sponsorship. So if NCC say we put on Trinidad and Tobago's Carnival, you don't think NCC would have got nothing?
All right, let me jump in there. No, you're right. But let me tell you, so let me look at two things. The NCC, the National Carnival Commission Act was formulated in 1991, right? A&R Robinson wrote it. And then the PNM government, who had now come in after A&R had the one term, they come and it assented into Parliament when they were there. In 1997, the cabinet minutes of 1997 came into force, where the resources of Carnival will be sent directly to the special interest groups. You see, from that time to now, nothing has changed within how the organization works, right? And how the organization works is how all state enterprises work. They have a political mandate. They have to listen to politics first before anything else. Last year, what was the major event last year other than COVID? Election.
Right.
The NCC board is appointed by the Minister of Education. Minister of Education. The minister responsible for culture.
Yeah.
Who is the chairman of the NCC? The chairman of the NCC didn't run for office last year. All of them same campaign and whatnot. So you know what's going on when the head campaigning? Things may not move as fastly as they're supposed to move. And you can't just be fast and out of place in this kind of structure to say, well, the chairman on sabbatical because he's trying to win his constituency, and we're gonna move things forward. They don't work like that. They have to wait till that process done, and then they have to wait till the budget done to hear what's going on. You said they could have go to corporate, but here what ended up happening. The Prime Minister came on in the he was on TV saying it can't have no carnival. And you know what that means for somebody who in the public sector who reports directly to a line minister or a permanent secretary? I can't contravene that even if it's informal or otherwise. I can't contravene that. So I can't come and say, well, the Prime Minister say don't have carnival, but we NCC gonna have a carnival. A lot of things had to happen first, and the gears of the public service and the political system are slow turning and poorly lubricated. The gears of the private sector well-oiled, and they evolve regularly, and they always changing out. If something not working, we get rid of it. I could tell it have people working in side organization who work in their years and have not upgraded the skills to match the evolution of the music and the carnival industry. You understand things happening?
And that's what I totally agree with everything you're saying, and it comes from the top come down, and that's why I was upset with our Prime Minister for coming out and making a statement of there is no Carnival 2021 just like that without proper consultation. And I'm not going to put any water in my mouth to say this and who vex lost, but what I'm saying is what should have been said is that there is no parade of the bands physically for Carnival 2021. But what we are doing is that we are inviting proposals. How can we keep it alive virtually in this new world that we are in? But what is happening is that we have a lot of the older heads there. Again, I ain't putting more time in my mouth to say that can't even our digital platforms. We have people in positions who can't even send a location on WhatsApp. So you don't have virtual world.
Based on what you're saying, as I said at the beginning, one of the things I said is that we do not appreciate our culture and our history. And you see, if certain things are passed down properly and we really understand what our culture is and how much weight our culture really have, we will pay more attention to it. We don't understand the rich heritage and culture that we have. So it's just carnival.
A lot of these people are seeing carnival as a 2-day parade, and they don't know that carnival in our industry, right? Let me just speak about carnival because the industry is huge, but we're talking about carnival here, right? And NCC and all of that. They don't know that carnival for the promoters industry starts Boxing Day, you know. It starts Boxing Day and it goes till Ash Wednesday. So you are talking about a 2-month period that an industry employs over 100,000 people that people are not even thinking about. From the barbers, the hairdressers, the people who selling the clothes, the rag, the flag, the scalper outside the party. All of these people make up the sector that benefits from carnival. So what I'm saying,
people have approached them though. People have approached. People have gone to the different. People went to the heads. People had walk up. You can't, well, we know they don't answer email, they don't answer the phone lines. I know people who went to the door, knock, and still be dismissed.
Exactly. So what I thinking should have been done, and I'm hoping because Carnival 2022 is a year from now, right? And if the entire population is not vaccinated by then, which is very unlikely, Carnival 2022 is also in jeopardy. And what we want is these discussions to start to happen with the heads, get some of the younger people involved. We're not saying to push out the older heads, you know. We're just saying get some of the younger people involved where you can get some innovative ideas, where we could keep the thing alive and people could still be employed, the culture could still be exposed, and we could start exporting this thing. And that's all we were saying from the jump. Don't just say we cancel Carnival. Ask for some proposals. How can we keep Carnival alive? Don't just cancel the thing just so. You ain't study the 100,000 people are affected by this, man.
I also find that it's lazy. and disrespectful. It's lazy and disrespectful considering the history behind it too. And it's almost as if it's just a by the way thing when you realize, no, there are options. How could you not even have the conversation?
Gerald, and I love that you said that. And this is a reminder to any government that is in control of Trinidad and Tobago that you do not own Carnival.
Oh, talk to them.
If you look at the history of Carnival, it started with the people of the country rioting to express themselves, the freedom to express themselves. So a reminder to any government of Trinidad and Tobago that you are the facilitator of Carnival. You allow the parade of the bands on the road, and you allow for these events to take place. And yes, you do give money, but Carnival belongs to the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
I will be fair though, Rome, and I will also say the people are also responsible because we too very lazy and disrespectful about it and have allowed nonsense to go on for far too long. The same people, the reason why the riots and all of this, the boa men and boa women. Meanwhile, in the actual calendar that's going on now, you could barely get them to do anything at all. The people, we ourselves, have become just quarrel about it while drinking a beer and allow the nonsense to continue.
Yeah, we are keyboard warriors. Everybody rush on Facebook and what are you gonna do? But I'm happy to see some of the younger people are involved and they are still keeping Carnival alive. I've seen a lot of the artists still having their shows. I've seen some of the promoters coming out and doing this hybrid between the virtual and the live events. So it is being kept alive. And I must say, I mean, kudos to NCC for at least having something. I'm upset that it's so late, but at least it is something. So I know that their hands are tied and are not attacking anyone in NCC specifically because, as Lamar said, their hands are tied. This is a political thing and it comes from the head trickling down. They can't really do much. Yeah. So NCC, I mean, thank you for putting on something, but to the government of Trinidad and Tobago, let's have that discussion earlier. 2022 is a year from now. What are we going to do? What's going to happen to the events industry? What's going to happen to the entertainment sector? What is going to happen to all of our creative industries who were the first to close and will be the last to reopen after this pandemic? Let's have that discussion.
For sure, agreed.
All right, great. I want to thank everybody again. We got the highest amount of viewers as we start talking about some controversial topics there, which is Trinidad, Bacchanal.
It's a bigger spoon, you know. We could keep stirring it.
So I really want to thank everybody again. I see people saying they want to get some sort of a transcript of what's going on here. This video will be available on YouTube after. But put up the comment, the closed caption, and type it out if you need to. You know, a lot of people here offered some really good solutions. And it's a really good discussion. I would like to challenge the private industry and the private sector to continue this discussion and start finding more solutions. You know, we can do what we can do, and as you all say, rightfully so, Music TT and the government needs to be operating a facilitator role, and that's what we try to do, to facilitate these kinds of discussions and facilitate solutions. So thanks again, everybody. And I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything to close off.
Thanks for having us.
I would like to say one thing. It can seem overwhelming, the issues. It can seem like it's too much to take on, but individuals have to sometimes reflect on themselves and remind themselves of what their skill set is and just own that and force yourself to come out of your comfort zone. One move, you're not good is still enough for something. Do the work. Do the work. Get up and do it regardless. If you tell yourself, well, it's not the best thing, it's in this, I ain't having enough, just do it. Do it still. And share, ask a question, pick up a phone, talk to somebody, because everybody's saying the same thing, but then everybody also, it's like everybody complaining about customer service in Trinidad and Tobago. So then who is the people serving us? It's not ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So we also have to take accountability of our own actions and not be lazy about it. Start to reach out, start to share, start to team up, start to whatever. But really the individuals, I think once the people start to make the move and bully the scene, will force the issue, the problems above us, will force them into action as well. So in closing, for me, everybody watching, whether you're in private, whether you're creative, whatever aspect of whatever your skill set is, do it. Don't hold back on it. Don't say, well, COVID, so I can't. It have ways. There are ways. Do it. Look at the foreign artists and figure out how they doing now, boy. How they able to do, and see how you could form your own ways, or talk to people. People have experience and knowledge under them. Talk to people. Hold a meeting over the phone, something, but do the work. Every little bit, as the old people say, drip, drip, bucket go fill. The end.
Yes. All right. Thanks again, everybody, and see you all again soon.
Thanks much.
All right.
Thanks for having us.